What is going on, you guys? The time is currently 2:11 a.m. on the East Coast. I just came back from driving from New York to see episode 29 in person, so I'm very tired. I want to make this video to talk about what I saw, including my conversation with Morita, where I asked him about the Hell arc. So, before we start everything, I have to say, spoiler alert. I will be talking about the contents of episode number 29, and so, if you do not wish to be spoiled, just skip to the part where I talk about the Hell arc. I'll pin it so you know where to jump to. But if you don't want to be spoiled, go in once, go in twice, final count. Okay, let's talk about this. First, I want to give you my opinion on the episode in general. I thought this was a good episode. And I'm sorry if my voice sounds tired. I am operating on like 4 hours of sleep right now. This episode is not a battle episode. So if you're going into this expecting some kind of fight, just pump the brakes. There's no fights in this. The only fight in this, I'd say, maximum of 2 minutes of fighting, if you're lucky. There's not much here. But it's a good episode. Good storyboarding, good art, good pacing, good set design. Specifically, you're going to see Taguchi's Rukon District in this episode, and it looks like you'd expect it to look. It looks very good. You also get to see Taguchi's rain effect, again, which I've missed since episode 11 and 12 of Bleach. I've missed the rain, and it comes back in this episode, so I'm very happy. But this episode focuses on storytelling, characterization, and backstory, mainly on Jujuro Ukitake, Shunsui Kyoraku, and Shinsui's conversation with Aizen Sosuke. So we're going to start from the top here, just going off of memory. I only saw this the one time, hours ago. I haven't watched it again. I don't remember I don't remember the exact quote, so I will be doing a more detailed review when I watch the episode again this Saturday. But for now, I'll tell you what I can remember. So, again, spoiler alert, but you probably knew that. So we pick things up after Jujuro realizes that he's going to have to do something about the Soul King now dying, and he activates Mimihagi, but Mimihagi's activation triggers a backstory. It triggers a flashback to Ukitake's parents taking their young child to the temple, the shrine of Mimihagi, and they're there praying for Mimihagi to save their son's lives. And there's a moment where Jujuro's mother starts crying and holding her kid, and she's blaming herself for not being able to bear him as a healthy boy. And at that point, you see Mimihagi resonate with Jujuro, and they get transported to a different space. It's very similar, if you guys remember Infinity War, when Thanos snapped his finger. He was transported to this, empty world where there was just water and an open space with Gamora. Very similar to Eren Yeager and Armin, where there's just water, open spaces, blue skies, and there's just the two of them. And you find that Mimihagi, the eye on the hand of Mimihagi starts to cry, and it forms a small little bubble. And Jujuro catches that bubble and he drinks it. And the drinking of that, of the tears of Mimihagi is what triggers the possession. And so then he wakes up in the real world, and now he's okay. The possession has been made. Jujuro is now the host for Mimihagi. Now, the backstory doesn't end there. It continues. So time passes, and Jujuro is now a little bit older, and he's walking around the Rukon District. And we get to see what Taguchi's Rukon District looks like. It's much brighter. It's much more vibrant. Honestly, I don't know if some people would feel that it thematically doesn't fit with what the Rukon District should be, because the way they present it here, you'd think it was a nice place to live, when in actuality, the Rukon District is, people live there, but it should look bleaker. But I like the way that it looks, and I think you guys will too. In any case, there's this thug bothering this grandma figure, and the grandma figure actually can fight, and she punches him or whatever, but Jujuro steps in to tell the guy that, hey man, if you're strong and you want an excuse to fight, just become a Soul Reaper. You can fight, and people will like you, and they'll praise you for it. Killing two birds with one stone. The guy gets cocky, and he tries to punch Jujuro, who blocks it, and then he forces a handshake, and then squeezes his hand and bruises him. And after the guy leaves, he coughs, and, obviously Jujuro, he's going to live much longer, but the issue is not gone. Mimihagi only slowed it down. His problem still exists. Time passes, and we get a sparring match between Shunsui Kyoraku and Ukitake, where they're sparring using wooden swords in a dojo being seen and presided over by Unohana Retsu, Yamamoto Ryusai, and Shojuro Sasakibe. That's right, there's some Shojuro gas in this. It's Shojuro in the center, Unohana is to his right, and Yamamoto is to his left. And these are all their thousand years ago forms. And so Yamamoto has the black hair. He's got some hair. Shojuro looks like he did back then, and Unohana just looks like Unohana as we want her to. In any case, the key point about this sparring match that you'll find is that Jushiro has an event where he starts coughing blood, and you think that maybe Shunsui would let it go, but Shunsui doesn't let it go. They actually keep fighting strong, and they still end up being dead even. Obviously, this is at the beginning of the story portraying, but in Bleach, Jushiro and Shunsui have always been presented to be similar, with Shunsui being slightly stronger. I wonder how things would be different if we removed the sickness tax for Jushiro, because at the very least, when they first started, and I feel like Kubo didn't really change it very much, they were comparable, and they were really close, neck and neck, rivals, friends but rivals, that's what they were. And all the while, Jushiro is dealing with a condition that is literally killing him every day, and yet he's able to keep up with Shunsui Kyotoku, so it makes you think. In any case, you get this budding relationship between Jushiro and Shunsui, and they really play into it to show you as time passes. I think they're walking through the woods, and the backgrounds are changing, and the trees look great, and the gardens of Soul Society. The set design is just superb. It's great stuff. We jump forward in time, and Jushiro shows Shunsui the Mimihagi statue inside the shrine, and they talk about the parts of the Soul King, where Shunsui hears that among the nobles, they say that parts of the Soul King fall from heaven, and there are different body parts scattered around the world. And Jushiro is saying that it's possible that this is one of them. The right arm of the Soul King governs stillness, which to Jushiro makes sense because his illness didn't disappear, it was just slowed down. And the relationship, it just continues to bud, it continues to grow, and the two grow ever closer. Now, there is this Kubo-esque thing. It's very Kubo-esque, and it's very Sorachi-esque. If there's any Gintama fans out there, this is super Sorachi, where he introduces a non-living thing. Like for Gintama, it was the Rice Krispie treats of Okita's Okita's older sister. Or just like random stuff, strawberry milk or dried pickled seaweed and things like that. Just random goods that turn out to be super important once the characters bond over it. In this case, Jushiro asks Shunsui to help him with something, and it was ultimately just to buy a certain pastry. I've forgotten the name. The name escapes me, but it's this pastry. And initially, Jushiro wants to buy that pastry and give it to the children in the Rukon district. I think they called him Big Brother, but I think they were calling him Big Brother because of the Rukon district stuff. I don't think he was actually his younger siblings. I don't think so. But Jushiro wanted to buy this pastry to share with the kids in the Rukon district, which he does, except this pastry has alcohol in it. It has sake in it. And so that's the joke. That's the gag that Kubo sets up at the beginning. Again, very Sorachi Gintama-esque. The gag runs for maybe one more time, and then on the third time, after Kain's death, there's a moment where they're obviously mourning, and typically the way that, at least in the Bleach culture, the way it's presented, to mourn, you share a drink, but they don't have any drinks, and so instead, they share this pastry. It sort of comes full circle for the very close friendship between Shunsui and Jushiro. Now, to go back to the Kain point, after Kain died, Jushiro was called and summoned to answer before Central 46, who were requiring him to appoint a new lieutenant. Jushiro denied their order, saying that he would not appoint a new lieutenant. Now, if you remember Thousand Year Blood War episode number 10, I believe, when Shunsui took over from Yamamoto, Central 46 required him to appoint one lieutenant, and he wanted two. He wanted Nanao, and then he wanted Okikiba from Squad 1. And his answer when Central 46 says you can't do that was that the decision to appoint a vice captain is set to the captain and the captain alone. Well, Shunsui wasn't the first person to use that argument. Jushiro was. He used that argument when they asked him to appoint a new lieutenant for Kain Shiba. So it's just an interesting thing about the relationship right there. Now, to go back to the fallout of Kain's death, as they shared a meal and they shared the pastries and whatever, Shunsui mentioned to Jushiro, because Jushiro obviously feels very guilty about the fact that Kain died, and he feels that, he should have died instead. He should have protected his lieutenant. And Shunsui lets him know that the time to sacrifice your life will come, but it's not today. And when the day comes, you'll be ready. But again, it's not your fault, and it's not today. So time passes, and we jump forward in time to after Yamamoto's death. After all the other captains have left, the three oldest captains have a meeting. It's Jushiro, Shunsui, and Unohana. You get to see a lot of the relationship between the three of them, because Unohana is the oldest here, and then I think it goes Shunsui, and then it goes Ukitake. Now, Shunsui keeps making these jokes about drinks and sake and women and being dumped, and you'd think that Unohana's character would have her not play into it, because it's not that he's flirting with her, because he's not, but he's making jokes about women, and Unohana will make a sliding comment that, don't worry, because Shunsui made a comment about drinking sake when he's dumped by a girl, and Unohana's response was that, don't you worry, you have my full attention. And it's like, I never figured they had this kind of relationship until you get to this episode. You realize that Unohana was Shunsui's sensei in a way, and they have a very respectful student to teacher type of banter. And I thought that was really, really charming. But at the end of that conversation, you find that Shunsui asks both of them to leave because he wants time to be alone, being that Yamamoto is dead. I think the closest person to Yamamoto was Shunsui, and so he wanted some time alone. Now, when Ukitake and Unohana leave, they have a conversation, and I'll stop right here for a second. There are two pivotal moments in this episode that, as far as I'm concerned, send shockwaves around the entire mythos of Bleach. There's two here. The first is this right here. I'm going to talk about those two things a little later in the video, so look forward to that, but there's two moments here. They're incredibly important. We'll get there. Let's go chronologically for now. Jushiro, we come back to real time, and Jushiro is continuing to do the Mimihage thing, and he explains this Kamikake stuff, and this is the problem with me only viewing this once, and also I haven't looked at the manga, so I can't tell if Kubo put this in the manga or not, but even though Mimihage took control, even though Mimihage possessed Jushiro's body, he specifically possessed Jushiro's lungs. The process to have Mimihage take over the entirety of his organs is called Kamikake, and so while everyone was preparing for the Quincy's next attack, if you remember when the Quincy took over the Sarate in episode 14, Jushiro wasn't in the Sarate. He was outside the Sarate at the shrine. He was performing the Kamikake. He was having Mimihage take over all of his organs, so he becomes the embodiment and fully possessed by Mimihage so that he could do what he's doing now. And so he and Rukia have this very cute moment. I haven't confirmed whether Kubo had this in the manga or not, forgive me. But there's this moment, it felt new to me, I'll say that. It felt new to me. But there's a moment where Rukia obviously doesn't want Jushiro to do what he's about to do. And Jushiro apologizes to Rukia for giving her trouble and constantly being a pain and all that, and not being strong enough to protect Kind and stuff like that. And then then when he notices that Rukia is faltering, he tells her that there are two kinds of battles. And again, this is a callback. I don't believe this was in the manga. This is a callback to what Jushiro told Rukia when Kain got taken over by the Hollow. And the masterful thing here, which is why I think this episode was so good, not from a battle perspective, but was still very good, is that when he says that, we switch to Shunsui, and Shunsui is the person who completes the statement, saying there are two kinds of battles. There's a battle to preserve life and a battle to preserve one's honor. Now, the cool thing about this situation is that Jushiro is currently doing both. He's simultaneously fighting to preserve life by saving the entire world, and he's fighting to preserve his honor as a member of the 13 Cold Guard squads. He's doing both. I think that's pretty cool. Now, with that, let me talk about the first pivotal moment. There is a moment where, after the implication, I believe, this is after Yamamoto has died, and Jushiro meets with Unohana. Now, Unohana is planning to take Kenpachi into Muken to teach him Zanjutsu, and she knows that the only way this works is if she dies, and so this is her last meeting with Jushiro Ukitake. Now, Ukitake, on the other hand, has succeeded in performing the Kamikake. Now, he is the full embodiment of Mimihage, and he does not intend to see his life through. They both have death flags all over them, and they're having a conversation. Now, this is what they say. I don't remember exactly all the dialogue, but the most important thing they say here is Unohana, or was it Jushiro? One of them tells the other that we'll see each other soon. Don't worry. Something to that effect, where they say we'll see each other soon. Now, I want to talk about this for a second, because this is important. You might argue that Jushiro and Unohana are either being tongue-in-cheek and they're being coy. I would argue that they're not, because Unohana was very clear. Unohana knew that the only way her Zanjutsu training for Kenpachi would succeed is if Kenpachi killed her. There's no two ways about that. That was very, very clear. And these guys are not in the business of beating around the bush in this regard. I don't believe that she was just being coy. No. And on Jushiro's side, Jushiro knows that he's on borrowed time. Jushiro does not have the option of a long life. Not anymore. Especially after you've performed the Kamikake and your entire organs have been given to this god. And so what they're saying here is directly correlated to them dying. They know they're about to die. And so why would two Captain Clash Shinigami tell each other that I'll see you soon? Why would they do that? I have one reason. Hell Arc. This is Hell Arc. This is Kubo in the anime doing a Hell Arc. The two captains know that they're about to die, and they know that if they die, a Konso will be performed. And they, in the deep recesses of their minds, I think Unohana probably knows it flat out because he's a first generation captain, but Ukitake at the very least, both of them must surmise that they're both going to end up at the same place. That is my belief. I believe this is the start of the build to Hell Arc content. We'll see what happens, but I think this is Kubo implementing a foreshadowing element for the Hell Arc. Because if Jushiro Ukitake, because the anime is putting a lot of focus on Jushiro, clearly, and Kubo has given you reason to care about Jushiro even more than you did with this backstory and this relationship with Shunsui. There's only one reason why Kubo would do this. It's because in the manga, a time is coming, and it's coming very soon, where Shunsui is going to have to face against his best friend. And we'll have to see what happens then. That's my belief. If you disagree, obviously you guys will see the episode and you'll decide for yourselves, but this is my opinion. Anyway, let's move on. Ukitake completes the Mimihagi ritual thing, and he stops the death of the Soul King. Now we switch to the Royal Palace. Now look, in this Royal Palace, a bunch of stuff happens. Okay, so first of all, Ichigo continues to battle Yhwach. It's not very long, it's very short, but he tries to continue to battle Yhwach as Yhwach continues to bait him and just mess with him. Yoruichi coordinates with the other three and says Ganju, Chad, and her are going to engage Yhwach, and Orihime will use that distraction to try to heal the Soul King. That's the plan. Get this. So, Yoruichi attacks Yhwach. Ganju uses Seppa to create some sort of smokescreen, and Chad, you heard me right, Yasutora Sado uses his brazo izquierdo del diablo, his left arm of the devil, and he attacks Yhwach with what I believe was a La Muerte. Now, Yhwach Baha, look, this is stupid. I don't even want to say this. This is so dumb. I don't know why they did this. This was terrible. This was terrible. I don't know why they did this. Yhwach Baha is currently in his almighty form. I feel like this was made for jokes. It has to have been. But in his almighty form, he elected not to dodge, even though Yhwach has been dodging everyone so far. The only thing I can say here is Yhwach he's throwing them a bone. Because he basically catches Chad's fist when I feel like you didn't even give Ichibe that courtesy. You didn't even give Ichigo that courtesy for a while, you know? Why are you blocking Chad? And then he blasts Chad away, but like Chad isn't bleeding or bruised. He just kind of falls down and he's out for a little bit, but then he gets back up. I'm like, did we underestimate Chad right now? Like, how seriously should I be taking this? Like, this is what I'm thinking. I'm like, how seriously should I be taking this? Chad just tagged Yhwach and then got hit by Yhwach, didn't bleed, wasn't bruised, and he kind of got back up. I'm like, oh my goodness, Yasutora Sado is. Are we about to have the redemption arc for Chad? Nah, I think this is played for laughs. That's what I think. Anyway, so as they're doing their thing, Orihime tries to heal the Soul King, and for a moment it kind of works for a second, but then it shatters. It ultimately can't work. And then Mimihagi shows up. Now, this is the second pivotal moment that's sending shockwaves throughout Bleach. There's a moment here after Mimihagi saves the Soul King from dying. Yhwach is seen like thinking to himself, and again, this is not verbatim, but he essentially says, I did not foresee this. It was in his blind spot. He did not see this coming. Now, in the manga, and I've said this for years, I'm so happy that they're doing what I theorize would happen. I'm so happy. In the manga, Yhwach was quoted as essentially saying that fragments of the Soul King are beyond his sight. But in the manga chapter that he said it in, he just says it in a throwaway format that Kuba doesn't really give it much focus. If you're not paying attention, you'll almost guaranteed to miss it. That's how inconsequential that statement felt. Like, he did say it. In the anime, and this is such a great positive outlook for 1000 Year Blood Wars anime, not only does Yhwach say that Mimihagi escaped his sight, Yoruichi is seen thinking and saying he didn't see Mimihagi coming. And then they triple down by showing Yhwach's foresight. If you remember, in episode 27 and 28, whenever Yhwach is using his Almighty, you'll see this like small, like for one, it's like a heartbeat, and then the screen freezes, and it's like this grayish textured black and white painting like thing of the future, and then it catches up. You guys know what I'm talking about. They show Yhwach activating his Almighty to see into the future, and the screen cracks. That's 3 evidential points. Number 1, Yhwach says it. Number 2, Yoruichi confirms it. And number 3, the Almighty stamps it. Yhwach Baha can't see the future of Soul King's fragments. That is a massive point. Not because it's new, but because the anime implemented 2 extra scenes just to make sure that you don't miss it. It was deliberate. Absolutely deliberate. We are heading down, like, I'm so clear about what we're heading down here. With what happened to Uryu, with the sign of his, like, with the form of his blute looking like the Soul King's arm, we are 100% heading towards an event where Uryu ends up inheriting some measure of the Soul King's Ryatsu, something similar to the Soul King. Uryu's gonna get something. He's gonna fall out of Yhwach's sight. Combine that with the antithesis, which I believe is the last cog that Yhwach needs to fulfill his almighty powers. You combine that with Still Silver and Aizen's Kyokasui Getsu, and my goodness, we are cooking a massive Bleach finale where everything suddenly makes sense. That was awesome. That was awesome. Anyway, so that happens. The final part of this episode is Aizen. Now, this is where I'm going to criticize the episode a tad bit. The majority of the episode, the beginning portions, I guess 3/4 of this episode, were the art direction, the CAD, the character art director, or whatever it's called, Michio Hasegawa. It's great. There's so many screenshot-worthy, wallpaper-esque stuff in this for 3/4 of the way. When you get to the Aizen scene, this is just my personal opinion. When I got to the Aizen scene, I felt like the quality dropped off. Like I don't know, like Hasegawa didn't do that, or something was off about it. I'll be honest. Also, this news about Aizen getting a new theme, he did not get a new theme. From what I could tell, it was the theme that the Vanishing Point used at the end of episode 19. It's just like episode 19, we heard the beginning part of that song, and here we're hearing the rest of it. And it's like this, it feels very techno. Honestly, I don't know who chose, like, I've forgotten who the director is for this episode, but the choice of song was terrible. For what is Aizen's return, the return of the god, using that music was downright terrible. I don't know. I understand if you want to build to treachery, but you got to use some more epic stuff, because I did not like that. It was too... It did not fit Aizen. Neither did it fit the scene, in my opinion. But that's just my opinion. I'll watch it again on Saturday, see if I change my mind watching it up close. But everything there sort of just happens as it does in the manga. Aizen talks to Shunsui. And actually, I will say, I do believe it plays better in the anime. Because Aizen's he's just kind of a brat. Because for everything that you say to Aizen, he's got to come back. Like, you can never get the last word against Aizen. And that's essentially what happens. Shunsui Kyotoku is a very smart, intelligent man. And he's witty, alright? He can talk his trash. But the ultimate trash talker is Aizen Sosuke. And they just go back and forth for like a good 30 seconds. And I loved it. It was awesome. There's also a very cool scene where they basically give Aizen Gojo's infinity. I thought it was hilarious. Like, his Ryatsu is around him, and when the blood from the guy who tries to grab him spills, it doesn't touch Aizen. It just, like, hits a barrier around him. Like, he's literally doing the Gojo. Like Gojo has everything stripped from it. Like, Aizen said, you know what? You got a cool move there. I'm taking it. I'm the Infinity now. And I'll do it better, too. Anyway, but so that was great. And the episode ends, obviously, with Shunsui asking Aizen to get on the chair. We see Chair-sama, and that's where the episode ends. So, anyway. So, overall, I think that episode is going to be very good. I can't wait to dissect it more, because this is my first viewing. I don't remember the quotes and all the details and stuff. I'm very excited to do the details, to really, really zone in on the character designs, because the art was great in this episode. Absolutely. Now let's talk about Masazaku Morita. I hope I'm saying that right. Is it Mazaku? I'm not sure. But let's talk about the Hell Arc thing. So today at the event, the VIP individuals got to have like a autograph session with Morita, and once you got up there, you could talk to him. There were translators standing next to both of them. So the Quincy voice, Uri's voice actor and Ichigo's voice actor, there were translators standing right next to them, and you were able to talk to them, presumably ask questions. And so I had two questions for Morita. Number one was, does he see Kubo continuing the Hell Arc? And does he think that Kubo will continue the Hell Arc? And if so, when? Something like that. And the second question I was going to ask was that, what are the directorial differences, in his opinion, between a Taguchi directed Bleach and a Noriki Abe directed Bleach? Now, I wasn't able to get that second question because, honestly, it was a little late and they're trying to get us out of there. So I couldn't ask the second question. So I instead prioritized the first question, which was, Bleach Hell Arc, Kubo Hell Arc. What do you know about it? Is he doing more? What do you know about it? Here's the answer. Morita, essentially, he sort of gave me a PR answer, I'm not going to lie. He said that, number one, he loved that one-shot chapter. He said that he wants more. He says that Kubo is really, really busy doing the anime stuff. Genuinely, he's busy doing the anime stuff, but he wants Kubo to continue, and that after me telling him about the Hell Arc stuff, when he sees Kubo again, he's going to remind Kubo that fans overseas want more Bleach Hell Arc manga. The funny thing to me, and honestly, you have to be very careful about taking these things literally. Well, for one, there was a translator, so I don't know exactly what he said. There was a translator, so, I'm covering my ass here, just in case. There was a translator, and I was going things based off, my understanding of the matter is based off of her translation, which I don't have any reason to doubt her translation. It was at Japan Society, and I believe she was Japanese too, so it was probably the right translation. But here's my point. There are some people out there who still doubt whether the Hell Arc is actually the Hell Arc or if it was genuinely a one-shot. I found it very interesting that when I referred to it as, we're going to get more of the Hell Arc, and his response didn't debunk the fact that everybody expects or everybody sees it as the start of an arc. Now, I know that may not be that important to people who already know this, including myself. I just thought that, it's not in an official capacity, but in this particular context, I'm speaking to Morita, and when I bring up the question, I don't present it as a one-shot. I present it as an arc, the beginning of an arc, and I'm asking if there's more. And even though his answer didn't say, yes, there will be more, his answer was, I want more. Kubo's busy, but when I see him, I'm going to tell him that people overseas want more. He just, the fact that they also assume or know it to be an arc as well, to me, is very good news. So if you're somebody out there who was still on the fence about the chance that it was just a one-shot, everybody who's talking about it calls it a Hell Arc, and no one is correcting us. I'm talking to Morita. Nobody is correcting us when we refer to it as an arc. I firmly believe that it is an arc, in case that wasn't clear. But whatever. So I believe that's all I have for you guys today. So if you enjoyed this content, and I know a lot of you probably do, don't just leave. Don't, come back. Don't just leave. I have Bleach content here for you. Okay? There's good Bleach. I got some good Bleach stuff for you. Every week, you're getting Bleach content from me. Hit the friggin' subscribe button, man. Don't make me beg. Alright? I got up at 3 a.m. on Tuesday. I drove 3.5 hours to New York in order to beat the New York traffic. I stayed in New York from 6:30 in the morning till 6:30 in the evening to go to the Japan Society thing at 7 p.m. We got done at 10. I got in my car and drove another 3.5 hours. I'm now back home at 2:46, working on about 4 hours of sleep. I understand that was my decision, and I stand by it because it was great. I got a signed autograph from Morita. I was able to talk to him. I was able to get a live dubbing session. I was able to see episode 3 early. So I'm not complaining. I'm just saying, there's content here for you. If you're a Bleach fan, there's content here for you. Do the right thing. Hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, comment, join the realm, and let's help grow what we got going over here. Anyway, so I'll let you guys go. Come back to me on Saturday for my reaction. Come back to me on Sunday for my official, much more detailed review. With that, I'll leave you guys there. Take care, guys. I'm gonna go sleep for the next 10 hours. Peace out.